Hey there, I'm Jennifer Valor, time freedom and accountability strategist, and your host of the Child Free Biz Cafe, the podcast where child free entrepreneurs and creators redefine success on their terms and thrive. Get ready for insightful conversations, empowering stories, and a community that embraces their child free life. Today, I'm talking with Maggie Dickens. Maggie is a licensed therapist and the host of the Unapologetically Child Free. Maggie's built this incredible space for child free women who are just done with holding it all together for everyone else and is just ready to feel as important and supported as anybody else. She's got this mix of therapy smart, real talk, and a calming energy that makes you want to exhale and finally stop carrying everyone else's emotional baggage. She's about to walk us through how to stop being the entire village and do it guilt free. Hi,
That's the
Maggie.
goal.
Yeah.
Hello,
Thanks so much.
hello.
Thanks so much for
Oh,
being here.
of course, of course. I'm so excited. I know that you and I have kind of scheduled and then my life happened and all the things. So I'm really excited to jump in. Thank you for that great introduction. I'm a licensed therapist. I'm licensed in the state of Texas and in Florida. But I live in Portugal. And so everything I do is online. And that makes it really convenient for the people that I work with. I also do coaching groups. So that's for anybody throughout the entire world, which really helps. I have clients and I think about like
Mhm.
5 different time zones right now. So calendars are hard, man.
So,
Um,
just fine.
and unapologetically child free and cathartic counseling, my two businesses are basically both sides of the same coin, where it's all about community and connection, but not having to hold the weight and responsibility of all of the community and all of the connection. So that's my spiel, and I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit more about it, but I don't want to soapbox too much too early.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about all this today because it's still very much true for us, sometimes maybe even more. But to start with, share a little bit about your child free journey.
Yeah, mine is not as like sensational as other people's experiences are. I don't know when I knew that I didn't want to have kids. I just never thought I would be a mom.
Mm.
I mean, there's caveats to that. There's peer pressure and societal pressure that like creeped in. But basically, by the time I was 20, let's back up. I didn't know that you could make a choice. And then I met this amazing friend who I'm still friends with today. So proud that I'm able to say I have a friend from college from 2004, 2005. And she and her sister were child free. And I was like, wait, you don't ever like child free and specifically single at the time, and we're like, no, we don't want kids, and we don't really care if we have a partner would be an addition, not a completion. And I was like, whoa, you just rocked my ever loving world.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really know that that was an option. I'd never really given it thought because I was 18.
Mhm.
But I definitely started paying attention more and realizing. And at 20, I went to the doctor and said, sterilize me. I'd like to be spayed and neutered, please. And she laughed at me and told me that I was too young to make that decision and how I'm going to change my mind. And, I would have at least had to have had several children by then. Keep in mind, I'm 20 for her to even consider it or to have had a partner and have that mutual conversation. So yeah, that kind of really, really started my whole this is bull. Why are we being treated this way? This is absolutely ridiculous. I think I remember ranting about it to everyone who would listen. And then eventually, fast forward to 2012, and that's when I started building my child free community because at that point I'm 24, 25. I don't know how to math quickly in my head. A lot of people started getting partnered and thinking about children, planning for children. And I was like, nah, that's not my vibe, man. And so I jumped on Google and said, how do I find child free friends? And miraculously, I found a forum of like 8 people. and
Woo!
and we built it up. We built up a Facebook group of By the time I left that Facebook group, it was like over 1,000 people. And I'm still friends with the original 8 to 12 that started that group.
Oh, that's
So
awesome.
yeah, that's mine. It's not as like sensational. I didn't get pushed back from my parents. I definitely wasn't understood, but I was accepted. So I don't have some of the stuff that I deal with like my clients or some of the things that my friends talk about.
Yeah, and that's also why it's so important that we do talk about it. That way
Mm-hmm.
people know that it is actually a choice.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get
Mm-hmm.
in more into that. So you touched on it a little bit already, but
Mm-hmm.
or what else helped you decide to start the business?
So
The group and the therapy.
yeah. So I fell into therapy as a job. I wanted to be a teacher and I was really bad at being even just like a teacher's aide. And it was like a basically guidance from an advisor who I loved at the school that I went to and just was kind of guided into being a therapist and I have some feelings about that, but that's a whole nother conversation. And I really was just a lost young woman following what I thought I was supposed to do. And I have always been the responsible daughter in terms of I say I'm going to do something and I'm going to do it. It may take me forever because I'm late diagnosed ADHD, um, but I will get it done. A windy road until I started specifically working with child free women.
Mm,
And it started with the unapologetically child free community that I wanted to create separate from the therapy biz. Because because I wanted to go on vacation with people and I wanted to like hang out with them, and you can't do that with your therapy clients. And I did that because of two things. One of my good friends, when I was talking about things I was seeing online and some of the conversations people were having about being child free and me not understanding exactly some of the pushback. And she said to me, now this is a woman who I met online in 2012, and she was like, Maggie, you're the only there's not many people out there who the vast majority of their friends are child free.
mm,
And I like started thinking about it and I was like, oh, right. Like I have a dozen really good friends that are child free and like
mm,
two or three that are pre parents or parents of young kids.
yeah.
And that was not common, even in my friendship group of the child free friends. And so I was like, oh, I had this very different experience and I wonder why. And then I just started doing my own work and started realizing that community for me is very intentional and
Mm,
it's very important. And I wanted other people to have this. I wanted other people to say, I'm choosing the people in my life, whether they are parents or they're not, whether they are blood related, whether they are, in Seattle and I'm in North Carolina, or what. I
mm.
want this to be a very specifically created community. And I think some of that came from my background in psychology and understanding how connection and community are the pillars to mental, physical health and life longevity and all of those things.
I just love that we are going to be talking about mental health today. And you got your dog there as a respite.
Yeah. She's not a therapy dog, but she's in therapy every day. So hopefully it will help her
She's your
aggression.
mascot.
Yeah. She bites people. So this is the only way that she could be involved is if it's virtual. She's part Chihuahua.
Oh,
So we are
there you
stereotyping and generalizing, but I mean it kind of fits. So.
go. Fits in her case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So still on the business side of things. So how
Yep.
has like just having this life the child-free lifestyle improved like your freedom, having resource availability and just for your business as a whole too?
When I went, this is a great question. And I think I love that you asked this question because being child free is a really big part of my identity, but not in the way where like I meet people and it's the second thing. Hi, my name is Maggie and I'm child free. Or
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to lead with the stereotypes and the generalizations. I'll do it with Chihuahuas, but not the child free. But it does play a huge role in the decisions that we get to make and how we live our lives. So for me, I was in a really codependent relationship at work. And it came to a head during COVID. And I had already been planning to learn how to do online therapy for the business that I was working in.
Mm.
And because COVID liked to highlight a lot of the amazing things in our communities, and then also all the fractures that we had not been paying, that we'd been turning a blind eye to.
Yeah.
My work relationships really just imploded, and I had to leave the job or I was going to lose my mind. And I was able to do that because I was child free. I was able to quit my salaried job because I only needed to, I was in a relationship at the time. That person was fully employed. And so it really was a safety net that I really just
Right.
needed. I needed to take care of my side of the bills, whatever that looked like in that
Mm-hmm.
relationship. If I had had children, I don't know. I honestly don't know if I would have been able to get out of that job the way that I did, when I did, if I would have even had the ability to notice that I needed to leave the job.
Yeah.
And then I also think that not having kids and has afforded me every single wild and crazy thought that I've had. I moved to Portugal. Yes, people do it with kids. And I'm going to guess that mine was easier.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Less logistics.
Less logistics. I mean, granted, I did bring over 2 dogs, and that was a logistics nightmare. But I think not having kids, being child free, has really given me also additional perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't have the pronatalist view that the world has been conditioned to have. I mean, I do obviously, I'm a part of the world. I've been working to break that pronatalist view. Pronatalism is basically saying that everyone is to have children.
Mm-hmm.
The default is to have kids. The opposite of or not being a pronatalist does not automatically mean that you're an antinatalist, which means that no one should have children. There is a continuum here.
Yeah.
I am somewhere along that continuum. But I think, I think it's given me that ability to show up for my clients and show up for the community in a way that says, yeah, everybody expected you to have kids and you're not. And that's going to have an impact
Absolutely.
on
Yeah.
everything, positively, not so positively, neutrally, but it'll have an impact.
Yeah, I know for me, it's more of let the people that want to have kids, but make it easier for them.
Mm-hmm. So much
And then
that.
leave the people that actually don't want to have kids, leave us alone.
Yeah. Let us be part of one of the things that you had mentioned about me is like, let's have a village.
Mm-hmm.
But we have to be good villagers. And something I talk a lot about is, and you had asked about like the resources that I have because I'm child free. Some of the resources is simply having a different perspective than a parent. So I often use the idea of, if you have a tiny village, you only need one butcher and one baker. And if everybody's trying to be the butcher, nobody gets any bread, right? I'm a vegetarian. I don't want to be a butcher, but I love me some freaking carbs. I will make bread and croissants all day long. Like, now I'm hungry. Okay. So let me be the baker. Let me add to the village in that way. And everybody who wants to be a butcher or a gardener or a teacher or, the bricklayer or whatever, versions of villagers in that analogy, that's the resource. I think the resource in being child free is being able to say that I would be a terrible butcher. Not only literally because I'm a vegetarian, but also like figuratively in this example, I wouldn't be a good mom and I wouldn't be a good mom friend. But I could be a really great child free friend to my mom friends. I could show up for them in a way that's congruent and, with my value set. And so, yeah, I think that's a big piece of it too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, something that we talked about before when we were getting ready for this
Mm-hmm.
is like there's more than one thing that can be true.
Yeah.
Like I love my life and like this stuff
Mm-hmm.
happens too.
Yeah. Both and is a huge thing for what I talk to my clients about, especially when I work with responsible daughters and people who grew up with what we term emotionally unavailable or emotionally immature parents. And so there's this like, we call it dissonance. There's this like incongruence. There's this like battle of
Mm-hmm.
saying something like, I love my parents and I don't want to be their parent. I love my life being child free and I'm tired of feeling the need to defend it. I love my life being child free and I'm tired of being expected to be the one with more money, more time, more energy, more resources to give to other people.
Yes.
If I'm a baker, I'm going to bake, but you still have to pay me for my bread,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Because if I were to go to the butcher, I would have to pay the butcher. That's part of being a good villager. And I think when we sit in it in this rigidity of have to say, and I think we see this in the mom community, which breaks my heart. And the moms I do work with really struggle with mom guilt of there's no wiggle room for feeling like I'm done today. I don't want
Mm-hmm.
to, I don't want to be called mom one more time. And there's this shame that's put on parents for saying that when that's a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like when my dog wakes up at 3 a.m. and needs to go to the bathroom, I don't want to. I do, but I don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when we are able to say both and are true, there's a relief that happens. There's a permission that we're giving ourselves to be humans instead of robots.
Yes.
Um,
Oh my gosh.
and you know, if I'm going to be a robot, do I still have to like pay my bills? Like that's just rude,
Oh
you
my
know?
god. Yeah, just hook us up to the server with some caffeine and then we're
Mm-hmm. Like
good.
you get me as a messy human if you're still going to ask me to like pay bills. But if you want me to be a robot, then you need to cover you being whoever the Illuminati is,
Right.
can pay my bills.
And even being child free and our life can feel and be a lot more positive. We don't feel like we have as much bad stuff going on or feel like life is as tough, but therapy is still very important no matter what kind of lifestyle you choose.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I talk a lot about like some people would benefit, some child-free people would benefit from finding a child-free therapist. And there's a lot of examples for that. But I think what happens is too often we get in this place. There was this thing that came about, and man, I said it all the time, first world problems. And all that meant was I'm minimizing my own problems
Mm-hmm.
because I know there are people who have it worse than me. When we are comparing ourselves to our neighbor instead of connecting with our neighbor, all we're doing is we are feeling isolated, feeling alone, feeling less than, feeling the weight of the world on our shoulders instead of saying, yeah, I have privileges. I'm living somewhat of a privileged life and I'm also struggling with X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And I'd really like to work on X, Y, and Z. And I think this is where that both and come into play is that some people say, well, if I have these privileges, then am I just being a negative Nelly, as they say, or a
Mm-hmm.
complaining Kathy if I go to therapy? And instead, it's just saying, let's use the privileges that we have to enhance our lives as much as possible. And I think something that you said just a minute ago, and it drives me nuts in the you didn't say the thing that drives me nuts. You said something that made me think about what people
Mm-hmm.
say in the child free community space online.
Mm-hmm.
Something I see a lot of is being child free equals being without problems. I get
Yeah.
to sleep till 10 a.m. I get to, fly to the moon on a whim. I get to do all of these things. I have all this freedom. Sure, that's true for some people. Like, that's absolutely, I mean, I sleep till 9 a.m. every day because that's just who I am. I go to bed at midnight. I need 9 to 9.5 hours of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
That's my life. And I think that we're forgetting that being child free makes your life easier. It doesn't make your life easy. Being child free doesn't give you a raise. It just means that
Yeah.
you're spending less, you have less output. You still are in, we're still in a late capitalistic society. We're still in a patriarchal society. We're still in a society where 0.01% of the wealth is, or 99% of the wealth is owned by 1% of the people, or whatever that statistic is. And I think it's quite isolating when some of the stuff we see online is just the like, YOLO, you're child free party, and life is hard, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's really difficult. The job market for some right now is just a nightmare. There's health concerns, especially in the United States. Yeah, like
Yeah.
insurance is ruining everything. As a mental health provider, I don't take insurance because they try to tell therapists how to treat you, and they tell doctors the same thing in medical practices. So I just, both and can be true. I can love the heck out of the fact that I chose to be child free and that my dream has come true. And I can also recognize like financial stressors and
Mm-hmm.
physical stressors and worry about global issues,
State of the
etc.
world
Yeah,
in general.
exactly. And it doesn't take away from the fact that like I love that I don't have kids
Mm-hmm.
and all this other stuff's happening. Like,
Yeah.
that's my soapbox thing. That's
Yeah.
why I do therapy, because people come and they're like, yes, I'm worried about the global state of the world. And I'm also struggling with my conservative in-laws who keep asking me for grandbabies.
And another reason to prove that we're just being human.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Just
Just part of
regular
just part
folks.
of being human. Everyone trying to get us to act like robots still.
Mm-hmm.
And being child free also doesn't mean that we don't know love and sadness and what being tired is like, even though it's different.
Yeah. So like, you don't know love until you don't know tired until.
It's
I
like
think
you don't love yourself, you don't love your partner, you don't love your pet, you don't love your
I
parents. What?
the thing is that I see with those comments that always happen, whether they're bots or they're just, people with more time on their hands than they think they have. I this just it's all about diminishing and dismissing other people's
Mm-hmm.
experiences. This is that othering, the us versus them, that is
Yes.
so anti-community. So when we're saying things like, you just because you're child free, you're going to be tired, you're going to struggle. Some people will struggle financially. Some people will all face the grief and loss of a loved one.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to, I'm 39, almost 40 years old. Perimenopause is like right there. I can like see it. I can feel
Mm-hmm.
some of it. Right. So I'm facing what happens when my body changes, and then AKA my own mortality at some point. All of that's going to come up. Career and physical safety, depending. I think what happens is when we say that my tired is more than your tired, my financial struggle is more than your financial struggle. We're we're infighting to the point where we're losing the plot.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning we're saying, oh, the butcher only charges me 5 cents and you're charging me 6 cents. So you're the problem. Instead of
Yeah.
being like, wait a second, the problem is the tax guy who's coming in every 3 days and is sitting high up on his
Yeah.
hill, and we're starving. We lose the plot of what the village and the community is supposed to be like. And that's everyone working together for the
Mm-hmm.
betterment of our community, of our village, instead of letting the billionaires win because we're letting them get away with whatever the hell. And we're just getting mad at somebody who's saying, I'm tired. I just,
Yeah. Yeah, because in general, no matter who you are, what lifestyle you have, like we're not meant to do things alone.
mhm,
And just because you can doesn't mean you have to. You don't have
mhm.
to take that whole burden on yourself. Especially as women, we're expected to have so much more on us, whether we have kids or not.
Yeah.
And it just keeps us isolated and unfulfilled.
Yeah.
And being an introvert doesn't help, being child free doesn't help. So
Mhm.
it's just learning to be around more people and finding people that you can actually create a village with. Like, for example, I never, so my best friend of 11 years this year, she's a mom of two, and her kids, I'm like an auntie to them,
Yeah.
and I love it. And I can't tolerate many kids, but in general, her kids, because it's her, and I've gotten used to them, I guess, in small doses. She
Yeah.
knows that I can only handle them in small doses and doesn't get offended by it. And she makes time for me every week. Like we have a set schedule of hanging out every couple of weeks. Like she just had her wedding, so I was helping her with a lot of stuff, and I knew that she needed decisions taken off her plate, so I was taking over for her for some things. So it's just knowing when and where, and just respecting those boundaries and
Mhm.
knowing how to be a good villager in that aspect too. So that's my example of being a villager with a mom friend.
Yeah, that's a great example. I love that when we can not simply say we need to have these like communities that are all the same,
Mm-hmm.
because that's boring. And being able to recognize, I love this woman and her kid.
Mm-hmm.
And she loves me. And there is not this, she loves me in spite of not having kids, or I love her
Mm-hmm.
in spite of having kids. I
Yeah.
just love her and she's my bestie. And
Yeah.
we are supportive of one another. And this is what that support looks like in
Yeah.
this current phase of life. It may look different in another phase of life in the way that you're supporting each other and showing up for each
Mm-hmm.
other. Um,
Exactly.
I think the best way that we can define our village as a child-free person is first, especially for those, like you said, women who are carrying that invisible labor
Mm-hmm.
of their family of origin. That's what we say for the
Mm-hmm.
people where we were born, family of origin, or maybe the households that we're living in. Recognize that that is something we've got to work on. The
Mm-hmm.
fact that we're shouldering that, continuing to hold on to all of that responsibility so that we can be one villager in the village instead
Yeah.
of having to be the baker, the butcher, the mayor, the everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the other is recognizing that you can that friendships are going to shift and change. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything. So sometimes you're somebody that you talk to every single day, you may not talk to them 5 years from now. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it was a waste of relationship. It doesn't mean
Right.
that it was they were a bad villager or you were. It's just the village will shift and change, and you're picking and you're being. I just encourage everyone to always be intentional and purposeful,
Mm-hmm.
not the default. And what I tell people to do in order to make that happen, because a lot of people say easier said than done, Maggie. You already have your friends, and I'm like, yes, and one great way to do this is to find two things that you have in common that are not coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
So a coincidence would be I was born in Atlanta. Somebody else who was born in Atlanta, that's a coincidence. You know how many freaking people are born there?
Yeah.
Like, a non-coincidence is both joining a paddle or a pickleball or a tennis league, right? We both love that. That's an interest that we have. It's not just a coincidence. Digging into that.
Yeah, I love that. We have so much in common outside of the kid thing, which is why it works for us.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
that of course helps.
for
So what
sure.
is so what's one thing you want everyone to take away with today?
You don't have to be the whole village. And sometimes it means setting those those boundaries, and
Mm-hmm.
boundaries and rules, those are different things. But setting the boundaries and the rules in your life to where you are only accepting relationships that are mutually fulfilling,
Yes.
and putting in the time, because you're not going to get an 11-year best friend the first day. It takes time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we're just so used to, I want the instant benefit of having a bestie. Go slow, be intentional.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has a role in the village. And some people's role is to be the baker, and some is to be the butcher, and some is to be the messenger. You just
Yeah.
got to find where yours is. I think the second thing, you didn't ask for two, but I'll give a second one.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second thing is go to therapy before you're in crisis.
Yes. Oh my
um,
gosh.
just don't wait until you're in crisis. You'll have a lot greater experience if you don't wait.
And where can we find you online? And of course, I'll link everything down below.
Yeah. Instagram is where the cool kids hang out, apparently, or the cool old people hang out. And it's at Maggie Gets Real, REAL. That's based off of my therapeutic framework. And then catharticcounseling.com will give you all the information about me and my work and how to work with me and all of that.
Awesome. So that's a wrap for today's episode. Thanks so much, Maggie, for being here. If you enjoy this episode, subscribe, share it, and share your thoughts in the comments, what resonated with you, and send this to a child-free friend. If you want to connect with me, I'm productively child-free all over social. And remember, you're not alone. Until next time, stay amazing and live life your way.